Welcome to Nerdarchy, for nerds by nerds. I'm Nerdarchist Ted, and today I'm joined by...
Nerdarchy Dave.
And today we're diving back into the Starfinder Core Rule book with classes. This time we're talking Solarian. Jump down the description below where you can sign up for Nerdarchy, the newsletter, get weekly gaming tips, as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy.
Also, while you're down there, you can find a link to grab your copy of Starfinder.
So we're jumping back into the core rule book. We're looking at classes. This time we're talking Solarian, and that can be found on page 100 of your core rule book.
And what we find with the Solarian is, so far, they have the most hit points and stamina points in the game at 7.
So they are beefy. When we were talking to Owen, who ran the premier game, he kind of attributed these guys, or in his opinion, they're rangers of the cosmos, but they're a very charisma-heavy class. So I was like, well, are they a cross between ranger and paladin then? I don't know. You guys let us know, what you think.
Well, their key ability score is charisma, and followed secondly by strength.
Which is why I kind of leaned it heavily towards paladin.
Their class skills, they get the lowest in the game at 4 so far. I don't know. I haven't seen Soldier yet to see if they go even lower. Also, I guess worth mentioning with their class skills, they actually get access to more class skills, but they don't actually get proficiencies in them.
They get access to it.
They just get more choices.
Right.
And they get a decent amount of choices as it is: acrobatics, athletics, diplomacy, intimidate, mysticism, perception, physical science, profession, sense motive, stealth. And, with the expanding that choice, you're like all over the place. So
Right.
They have plenty of options.
So they also get light armor, basic and advanced melee weapons, and small arms. So these guys are designed to be more melee combatants than they are for ranged.
Yeah, I was a little surprised to find that they only get proficiency in light armor, and and they have limited weapons. They actually have one of the more limited weapon selections, of any of the classes so far.
So the Solarian is, as I said, a link to the cosmos, and they literally at first level get to make a choice as to this little stellar moat that follows them around, and you either have it be photon and it radiates in blue, yellow, or red, white light, or it's like graviton and it emits like dark light, and it's like a black hole.
So it's like star or void,
Right.
Star or black hole, like you said. So and most of that choice is basically superficial anyway. It doesn't really mean much, because as you go through, they get powers based on both, and there's penalties if you go too far to one side or the other.
Correct, and we'll get to that part later. So your solar manifestation, this little mote of energy, you also have to choose whether you want it to be an armor or whether you want it to be a weapon. And this choice, once you lock it in, it's set. After that, you can kind of change what it looks like and change how it functions every time you every time you level up. So it's pretty interesting.
So one of the things, I guess we should back up just a little bit. Their base attack bonuses so far is the highest in the game. It's a 1-for-1 per level, and their good saves are fort and will.
So that to me kind of strikes to the paladin abilities.
Now I actually have a little bit of a different take on these guys.
Okay.
So as I'm reading through them, and I totally at first was like, yeah, these guys are like space paladins. But as you read their powers really do push them away from that paladin.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, the source is similar, where a paladin gets their power from beliefs or a deity, and these guys get kind of like the same kind of deal, but with the cosmos itself. But when you start looking at the type of abilities they get, it's much different than what you would expect from a paladin.
Yeah, I would agree.
It actually made me think of like a psychic warrior.
Okay. That's actually a pretty cool, happy medium.
Yeah, because essentially a lot of their powers they get, allows them to interact differently in the way they move, the way they fight, their environment, their ability to affect the environment. but it's all very close to them.
Mhm.
And again, it kind of speaks to like they fight with melee weapons. So skill adept, we had already kind of mentioned, like they get to pick up some extra skills that they have access to, not necessarily that they're proficient in them, but they get to add them to their list. The solar manifestation is that light or dark buddy that follows them around, and they can actually turn that into their armor or their weapon, and depending on your choices is going to determine how it affects you.
So as you level up, that mode of energy, whether you go armor or weapon, gets increasingly more powerful. If you go with armor, it stacks with light armor, not heavy armor. So if you get heavy armor from another place, then you certainly don't want to be wearing this as armor. Starts off with just a flat +1 to AC. At 5th level, you begin to get resistance, and as a move action, you can change it from cold to fire, or back to the other. And that resistance goes up as you gain levels. The whole thing caps out at 20th level to a +2 to your armor class and a resistance 20 to said energy type. But the weapon damage is, in my opinion, where it's really at, because it starts off at just a simple D6 and scales as you gain levels. At 6, 9, and 12, it bumps it up, but then every level after 12, it gets another D6, capping out at 12d6 extra damage.
Yeah, so these guys are definitely they're going to hit hard. Um, and there's some other abilities that kind of made me think later on. Like for instance, like these are one of the few classes to get multiple attacks. But it's not quite as good as
The operative.
the operatives. At first, that's what I was thinking,
Mhm.
right? But that being said, if you actually math it out, because they have a better attack bonus progression, they actually do a little bit better. They just don't get, and they don't get quite as many attacks. So this is definitely like, and they're meant to be a melee fighter, which seems weird in a space game.
But I mean, if you look at the sheer damage, if they have the ability to, if they're fighting in melee, they can eventually swing up to 3 times at a -5 per hit. But if every hit is doing 12d6 extra damage, they're wrecking stuff.
Yeah, and even with that -5, that puts them still better off than the operative. So yeah, so it's not bad at all.
And the operative has to actually do a trick in order to do their extra damage, where they're just getting it on every swing.
Yeah, so these guys can definitely hit hard. So I guess your stellar revelations, that's where you're gonna really start defining your Solarian.
Absolutely. And as I said before, they have the options of, gravitons and photons. And Dave pointed out that if you focus too heavily on one, you're going to actually start taking penalties. So it's a little bit complicated, but when you start combat, you can choose to either be photon attuned, graviton attuned, or unattuned. Unattuned gives you nothing. There's bonuses to the other, and it takes, when you start off, 3 rounds. You get one point a round, and it takes 3 points to be fully attuned to that thing. And some of the revelations, you need to be fully attuned to actually be able to enact its power.
Well, yeah, I think there is some of that, but most of them are, as long as you're attuned, you can enact their power. But when you're fully attuned, it changes what that power does. It gets better.
Okay, yeah, you're right. The last thing I read was their Zenith revelations, which that fully requires you to be fully attuned.
Now, when you go into the graviton mode, it's more of a defensive mode. It gives you a bonus to your reflex save, so that at this point you're going to be good at all your saves. If you go graviton, now if you go photon, it's going to give you bonuses to attack.
Insight bonus to damage.
Oh my bad. Yeah,
And the,
if you go photon, it makes you hit even harder than you already do. And that's one of the things that I really found as I was going through this and looking at their different revelations. And that is that graviton tended to be more defensive and photon tended to be more offensive. And also like the graviton had a lot of miscellaneous uses, and photon was more like debuffs on your enemies.
so looking at this, you wind up getting these revelations. You get two at first, another one at second, and you get to pick one every even level thereafter. And as Dave says, if you go too heavily towards one, you begin to suffer a penalty. As I said, you needed 3 points to be fully attuned. Well, if you have more than two difference in these revelations, if you have 4 graviton and 1 photon, you've gone too heavy in the graviton, and it's now going to take you 4 points to actually be fully attuned to something. So they do kind of want you to kind of every other level
Stay close.
be staying close, be picking the other choice. And since it doesn't push you towards picking one and sticking with all of it, I think it's the best of both worlds, because there's a lot of really good stuff that's here. And if you like one side better than the other, you can just cherry pick the really good ones that are going to help your character from the other side.
There's like a couple powers in here on the photon side that involve charging and bull rushing. They kind of make you like a comet. Like the one is you like charge and explode into them. The other one is you leave this streaking trail that does like fire damage to people that go through it.
I liked I like the one that actually changes you into a streak of light.
Yeah, that is like your a zenith power. That's super high level, and you move at the speed of light, and you can just, as long as it doesn't block light, you can move through it.
And says no creature can use a reaction to interfere with your movement or makes an attack of opportunity against you unless it's capable of reacting faster than the speed of light. The fact that they had to put that in there makes me wonder what else is in this book.
Yeah, what can react faster than the speed of light? So that is kind of crazy. That's a super high level ability, by the way, too. Like bringing it back down at 3rd level, they get sidereal influence, and that's basically they can focus and they get good at certain skills depending on whether they're going graviton or photon. So it's kind of like a non-combat ability. Like everybody, they get weapon specialization. They get an ability called flashing strikes, which actually means they're actually better at multiple attacks than other people. So when they take the full attack action, you can choose to take 1 attack or 2 attacks. Normally it's a -4 to all your attacks, but these guys it's a -3 instead. And when you couple that with the fact that they also have the best attack bonus in the game, they're good at making more attacks.
Absolutely. And then, I'll jump ahead later. They get another ability at 13th level that they can actually make 3 attacks at a -6. Unless, you're actually using the flashy strikes and you're fighting melee, and that actually then reduces it to a -5 to hit, as I had said earlier in the video.
Right. So that literally still makes them better at making multiple attacks than the operative, but they still can't make as many as the operative.
Right.
But they're more likely to hit with them.
Mm-hmm.
Now the bulk of their abilities, like we already said, is going to be the stellar revelations, and they're tiered like some of the other abilities we've seen in the book. 1st level, 2nd level, 6th level. So you're gonna have to. There's requirements that you're gonna have to meet in order to take them. Like we said, you're going to probably want to keep some kind of balance with them. But this is the bulk of where you're going to change up your character and how they interact. Of all the character classes we've seen so far, this one is the least customizable, in my opinion.
I would agree, but there's still enough diversity to say, okay, well, if I decide I'm going to go armor and not really focus heavy on this, I can stick to a dex-based guy, and I'll use some of my powers that if something gets close, but meanwhile I'm just going to go shoot. Whereas, all right, another option is to go with the weapon and go heavy damage focus. So like there's that split, and then depending upon what revelations you actually take, I think there's enough that no two Solarians are going to be alike.
You can definitely make different ones, but of the classes so far, this one has impressed me the least. All the other classes is like, oh, I really want to play this. It trailed off a little bit with the Mystic, but the Solarian is the only one I must say I like. I have like almost zero desire to play this one.
Having played a Solarian, reading through the concept on this one really struck me as I want to play that. Reading through it again, I still really like it. I still like the options that you can do, but having played it, I'm like, well, I didn't feel as cool as what I read
Yeah.
either time.
What
So
level were you?
I don't remember. I want to think we were pretty low, like third to fifth.
Well, that might be it too. Like you didn't have access to as many of the cool abilities and stuff like that.
And it was, first time playing, so remembering to, oh, I have to attune if I want to do this, and can I remember all of the different things if I go this way or if I go that way. It's always rough the first time you play a new rule set.
And these guys are very combat heavy. So a lot of their abilities, all the attunement abilities, you can't even use them if you're not in combat.
Hmm.
So right there, like that's a huge swath of what this character does. That's completely eliminated from like exploration and social interaction situations. So with that, with all of them, we go into the themes, and again, we get this excuse to have some more cool art. And again, with the Solarian, I am less impressed than I was with the other ones. Like these guys just don't speak to me the way some of the other ones did. I'm sorry, guys. I personally probably will not be playing a Solarian in Starfinder when we finally get around to
Well,
it.
that's the great thing about opinions and differences is, some classes are going to reach out to certain people and other classes aren't.
Right.
So
Which is funny too, because like I read it, I'm like, I can see this and I can see that, but it just didn't appeal to me. You're like, yeah, these guys are really cool. So, but no, it's just different opinions, different strokes for different folks.
So if you go with the theme icon, you can make the champion. You do what you must to protect the people you serve, even if it means getting your hands dirty.
And we have the Cosmic Mercenary. Not surprisingly, the theme is the mercenary. They didn't get very creative on that one. You've been hardened by battle and always ready for the next job.
So if you go with the theme Xenoseeker, you could be a luminous explorer, and here you actually see like the crackling energy of the stellar armor, and clearly they went with the positive side for their armor as opposed to the void. You journey to uncharted planets to learn everything you can about their flora, fauna, and civilization.
Yeah, it reminds me a little bit of Buster Gold, or is it Buster or Booster?
Booster Gold.
Booster Gold, except for it's a little bit too much gold and too much on the character because there's very little contrast.
Mm.
So that kind of makes it like this muted all around gold color. But what are you gonna do? So we have the Outcast, which the theme is outlaw. You you were once part of a close knit group, but the manifestation of your powers frightened them, and they drove you away. And matter of fact, I find like the outlaw one or the outcast one is actually the most interesting of the lot.
And it's interesting because here we're actually seeing, that type where I said like they're dealing with the guns. So
Yeah,
everyone else has got a melee weapon in their hand, and this guy's got a pair of pistols.
yeah, sword, axe, or I should say hatchet, sword, hatchet, and spear. The spear actually looks kind of cool with its dark eminence. You
But
definitely went weapon on that one.
but the problem with that one is like looks like he's got two hands on it, and your Solarian weapon or your solar weapon, it's a one-handed weapon. It specifically calls that out that you can't use two hands on it.
Son of a monkey's uncle, how dare he? Someone got crazy with the creativity. But all in all, so this is your warrior type. They're gonna be beefy. They're gonna be really good at combat. And while everyone is blasting away with pistols or blasters, you probably want to hit it with your axe.
So, what do you guys think of the Solarian? Do you agree with me? Do you agree with Dave? Have you played one? Do you want to play one? Continue that in the comments below. While you're down there, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
Don't forget, you can pick up your copy of Starfinder in the description. There's a link.
So until next time,
Stay
stay
nerdy.
nerdy.